This is Call on the Field Stands podcast. I'm Jeff Mapus, here alongside Ryan Denchef.
Yo.
We got a lot to deliver in episode 3 here, right in the midst of MLB playoff push, action-packed week 2 of the NFL, and we're already going into week 4 of college football, quarter of the way through the schedules. Plus, we have got to get to Tim Tebow's comments on the current topic of paying collegiate athletes. Ryan, it's crazy to think that we're already on episode 3 of this podcast. For the listeners tuning in, Ryan and I both went to Ohio University together. Obviously, had a blast there. Now we found ourselves both living in Cleveland, and we, for a while there, started talking about starting a podcast. We're both pretty passionate sports fans and pretty opinionated, I would say.
Yes, indeed. And you said, can't believe it's already the 3rd episode. I can't believe the first thing you said, quarter way through the NCAA season, is wild to me to think.
Week 4, man. It's crazy.
We're almost into, October? It's crazy. The fall is upon us. Football in full swing.
Full swing.
Let's do it. And you probably heard me crack that beer on those mics. We got a little Jackie O's Athens, Ohio special, like you mentioned, going to OU. Neighbors to this new brewery that the new brewery location, I guess, that they put, that second location was right behind the house over there. So yeah, let's just jump into it, man. What you got up first? I think you said MLB. Is that what we're kicking it off with?
Let's get into some baseball talk.
Let's do it, man.
You mentioned we're deep into the fall.
Yes.
That means playoff baseball push. Indians had a huge series this weekend with the Twins.
I was at the game Sunday. Roberto Perez probably saved the Indians' season with that 3-run home run late in the game to take the lead. What's today? The 18th, I think?
Yes, sir. So
at the current moment, the Tribe is a half game back out the wild card behind Tampa Bay. You got Oakland, pretty comfortable at 2.5 games. I know we recapped their schedules upcoming, and Oakland had a pretty easy schedule ahead. Indians medium, and Tampa Bay has a pretty tough schedule. But yeah, man, talking about the Tribe specifically, if I was going to put money on it, I would probably, and not bias included, say the Indians are probably going to make that jump into the playoffs. I know we just got Kipnis hurt again. He's going to be a big blow, but being a half game back, Tampa Bay's got that tough schedule. What's your outlook coming in the next couple weeks? I know they got Detroit right now, tonight, and then tomorrow. They handled their business last night. What's your outlook on that wild card? Because overall, I think the divisions are more or less wrapped up.
I would agree with that. The divisions seem pretty well set, I would say, in both leagues. But I think the Indians definitely have the capability of getting the wild card. I mean, the only way they'll get the Central Division is if Minnesota totally just falls on their face. But their schedule is probably the easiest out of
right.
The teams in the hunt here toward the end.
And the Indians are still 5.5 back or something like that?
I mean,
it's more or less out of reach with 11, 12 games left.
It'd have to be a pretty
Colossal
decent size collapse there toward the end. So the A's have the easiest schedule out of the 3 teams pushing for the wild card out of the Rays and the Tribe. So, it comes down to handling your business. Cleveland has to go up against the Nationals, and they're pushing for the wild card. Yeah. So that's a huge series, interleague play this late during the playoff push. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, and I'm
not a fan of it. Really.
I mentioned I was at the Tribe game Sunday. They did lose those first 2 games of the series, which that put a hurt on the division. They pretty much fucked themselves at that point. That's when it all kind of went south so far as the Central's concerned. But if they can just handle their own, their pitching is set up pretty well. They got Savale pitching tonight, I think. We mentioned him the other night, but he ended up getting pushed after pitching like 2 innings of a game that got canceled. That kind of
just a bizarre situation.
Yeah, threw a whole wrench into the whole thing.
By the way, that storm was fucking wild, man.
Wild.
That was insane.
Yeah, man, my power went out. I know yours did briefly. Mine was out for almost 24 hours.
Yeah, that
had to go up to the bar at like 11:30 to start getting my beer drinking on before the Buckeyes game, which we'll get into quickly. There's not too much to talk about so far as the Buckeyes were concerned, handling their business against Indiana. But Yeah, that storm. I know a lot of this Midwest Ohio region got smacked pretty good.
Yeah.
That lightning was
The lightning was crazy.
nothing like I've ever seen
Yeah,
before.
I mean, the intervals were like seconds. I mean, a matter of seconds before the next lightning strike. And when the power went out, it was like a giant power surge. I mean, we saw a huge lightning strike out here outside of our windows, and then bam, all the lights started dimming, and all of a sudden, power was cut. We pulled open our balcony door, and the trees were just fucking swaying back and forth. There were a couple that ripped down in our area, but wild storm kind of kicked that series off in a bizarre way. You know, you play how many
Exactly.
innings, games tied up.
Yeah, I think they got through
and
3 innings.
It was all thrown out.
They got down 2-0 in the first inning real early. They ended up coming back, scoring 2, and then the game just basically never happened, went away and disappeared. But yeah, that was actually, it was wild because I was looking at it, and this was Saturday afternoon, probably around 5-6 p.m., and they were saying they wouldn't turn the power back on until Monday afternoon, perhaps. So my wife and I were just chilling there and just BSing, kind of looking at our phones, and the TV comes back on, the AC kicks in, and like it was a moment of startle, like what the fuck is that? I was like, oh shit, we're back. So,
Happiness.
Yeah. So got to watch a little bit more college football that evening and get ready for that Tribe game Sunday, which, like I said, Roberto Perez might have saved the Indians' season a little bit.
Well, like we said last podcast, winning that series wasn't even just about the division. This wild card race is really tight, so you needed win. Getting that win Sunday was huge for the wild card push. I mean, getting swept, not just the division, the wild card would have seemed a little more daunting than it is
especially
today.
with Bieber pitching against a bullpen game from the Twins.
And that's the other
That'd have been
shitty part about the storm is it turned into a doubleheader Saturday when the Twins already had a bullpen game scheduled. Right. We didn't. We had our 3 best starters slated to pitch Friday through Sunday. It kind of threw a wrench in that game plan.
But so as it goes, I guess, and you got to kind of regroup. One game doesn't really, mean a whole lot. I mean, it means a lot in the immediate moment, but when you look at 162 game season, the first game of the year is just as important as the second to last or second to last week game. It just seems elevated. So it is just one game. Unfortunate that you lost 2 of the 3, but the one getting in there really is going to make headways towards that wild card. Speaking of the wild card, the Dodgers beat the Rays last night and threw like 7 or 8 pitchers. And did you hear about how they're going to implement the 3 batters rule?
With relief pitchers?
Yeah, next year it's going into effect.
What is it, a minimum?
Yeah, I think a pitcher has to face a minimum of 3 batters. There are some
exceptions.
Yeah, like I think if you end an inning, you don't have to come back out the next inning. So like if first guy gets on, then next 2 outs come, you can bring in a reliever. He gets that last out. He doesn't, I don't think, have to come out the next inning. Could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. But yeah, it's pretty wild that you can throw 7 pitchers in a game. It's just so weird, especially like we said, like the Twins threw 2 bullpen games. You got these teams that are throwing bullpen games. You never, as a lineup, see the same pitcher twice through. You're seeing a new batter every single time you're up at the plate. I don't know. It's an interesting way to, like, if strategically wise right now, especially in September when you have 40-man roster up at the big league level, it's an interesting way to kind of throw a team almost. Like you think, we got Clevenger going up against the Twins bullpen game. Not as advantageous as you would think, even a few years ago, just the way that teams are set up now. So it could be interesting with that new rule. I'm not sure if I really agree with it. I guess I got to find a little bit more details. I think they still have to solidify things, but
it takes away some of the strategy. I mean, obviously.
Or does it implement more strategy?
Well, no, it's going to. What's going to happen is it's going to increase the pay of the solid relievers because you're going to have to
pitch more innings.
Any reliever that's a quality pitcher that's out there on the market there's going to be a high demand because if they got to keep them out there for a minimum of 3 batters or outs or whatever the new rule is going to be, that makes them all the more valuable. Their value is already high. The quality playoff teams the teams that make the run have good pitching.
Yeah, you have to.
At least your first three in your starting rotation are all solid, and then the back end of your bullpen is extremely sound to where you have multiple arms that you can throw in middle to late relief, and then you got a guy that can come in that ninth, maybe even eighth and ninth, and drop the hammer and shut shit down. So, yeah, that rule will be MLB is going to try and do whatever they can to minimize delays in there. I mean, every time you have a pitching change, go to commercial.
Right.
I mean, commercial break. They're going to try and come up with ways to minimize those type of breaks. So, be interesting to see what Manfred comes out with as the commissioner now, trying to get with the times a little bit.
And like I said, I'm interested in to see what happens these last couple weeks. Hopefully, they try to pull through for our sake. In the National League, you still got the Mets hanging on 3.5 games back of the wild card to the Brewers. Same with the Phillies. Brewers and Cubs actually tied now, but like we mentioned last week, Christian Yelich with that broken knee. We'll see how that holds up for the next 2 weeks or so. And then the Diamondbacks, pretty much a long shot at this point, I think. But more or less, it's going to be probably the Cubs, and if the Brewers can hold on without their best player, they have set up for a pretty good shot. Have won 9 of the last 10, which good for them. But we don't want to get too much tied in on the MLB talk. I think next topic we wanted to jump in on was Week 3 of the NFL. What do you got on the docket for the discussion? I know we want to touch on the Browns Monday Night Football. The Jets kind of sucked ass, so there's not too much to talk about there, but what do you got teed up?
Some pretty major news came out after Week 2 games. Got some major injuries for you, Ryan. Big Ben,
bro,
on those evil fucking Steelers is done for the season.
Dude, their season.
I thought I'd never see the day. I mean, Big Ben always takes these hits, and he battles injuries every year. But I swear, I mean, he never officially comes out of the game or season. I mean, he's always there competing. It's just
same
bizarre.
thing with Drew Brees, man, who's another guy who's out for about 6 weeks. Who I think I heard he hasn't missed a game. He's missed one game since high school or something.
There was some absurd stat about Drew Brees and his longevity. So two big names. I mean, two big quarterbacks.
Yeah, Cam Newton
really
might
good
be.
teams.
I mean, he struggled the first couple weeks, and he has been missing team practices. We'll see kind of what shapes up if he even plays this weekend against the Cardinals. Should be an easy win for the team, but they could start 0-3. A lot of starting quarterbacks just gone. And that's really going to shake up. I mean, the Steelers, there was kind of some speculation. They lost a lot, they lost Antonio Brown and some other key pieces. Overall, there was speculation that they might not be the dominant force that they've been for years. But you take Big Ben out of the situation, they are probably going to have a top 10 pick that they just traded away to receive Minkah Fitzpatrick, which is an interesting trade. How do you think that trade mixes up this regular season? They don't have Big Ben. They already are struggling 0-2 to start the season. What do you make of that trade?
The trade is pretty interesting. Starting 0-2, obviously, statistics show anyway, just pure numbers that your chances significantly decrease at making the playoffs. But there's a lot of season left. Mason Rudolph, I mean, we just don't know. The common fan isn't going to know anything about
He's
Mason
that OK
Rudolph.
State kid?
Yeah. So, who knows what they have with him? I would assume trading a first-round pick after they knew about Big Ben's injury indicates that they have faith in Mason Rudolph. I mean, it's not like their roster, top to bottom, is bad or just average in the NFL. It's pretty solid. And adding Minkah Fitzpatrick really is a huge upgrade to their secondary.
For sure, which is one of their weaker points of that team. And that's kind of like I mentioned, there was a lot of discussion about the Steelers are, not going to be in that division as a team that's going to be, leading the way like they've had for the last how many years. And it was going to be the Browns' opportunity to kind of step in. But I was under I was one of the people talking about, don't overlook the Steelers because they still have a lot of talent on that roster, like you mentioned, and they're still going to be the Steelers. I mean, a team that I don't remember the last time they've had a losing record. Mike Tomlin is a solid coach that people don't really give a lot of credit to. People actually say he's a detriment to that team, which is wild. One of my buddies who's a Steelers fan he said, I texted him about, your season's pretty fucked. Big Ben's done. You guys are doomed. And he's like, fuck it. Tomlin and Big Ben, we need new blood in there. Get him out of there. Fuck him. I'm like, dude, Tomlin has been a solid, above average coach in the league for quite some time. So I don't know what to make of that trade. I mean, obviously it helps their secondary, which is, like I said, one of their weaker points of the entire team. And like you kind of said, Mason Rudolph, maybe they have a lot of faith in him, or maybe they're just saying, fuck it, let's just set up, get our secondary locked down. We got our quarterback. Do we really need that first round pick? We have a lot of talent. Maybe they're just kind of setting up for next year. I don't know.
Could be.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Think
I don't
about
know.
setting up for next year and then going ahead and trading your first round pick. Probably.
I mean,
not something you see every day, but
say Rudolph doesn't really pan out this year, and Steelers do have a top 10-ish, type pick. I'd rather keep that pick than trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick. And if regardless of if Big Ben plays next year or not, his years are limited.
So what do you want? Use that first round pick on a QB?
Use it on a QB, possibly. Let him sit.
If you have the 9th pick, what kind of QB are you going to get at number 9?
You can trade up. Be worth it.
And that's another thing. I mean, the one thing about the Steelers is they have had good track record with their first round picks, unlike some teams, the Browns. But Minkah Fitzpatrick is a commodity, bro. He is a beast.
He's good. I love him.
He's a guaranteed player who is good, who you can't strike out and miss on a first round pick. Like a first round pick, you're basically trading a player to be named later for a stud right now.
I totally agree with that mindset. Totally agree.
But if you need a QB, that's kind of where it comes back into Mason Rudolph.
That's the only...
They did invest highly in Mason Rudolph. What, 3rd round pick, I think he was. Yeah, look that up. So he was a guy who was, looked coming out of college as a guy who could be the next guy, and I was kind of pissed when the Steelers got him because he reminds me a lot of Big Ben. And being a Browns fan, I'm sick of that.
3rd round.
Yeah, so I'm sick of that kind of quarterback in the division dominating for Pittsburgh. So who knows? Maybe this kind of a grooming season of throw him out there. Probably only going to win a few games. Hopefully Ben will, advise and kind of, which is what I've heard is what he wants to do and intends to do is kind of be that guy who's going to kind of help lead and teach Rudolph and kind of be a figure in the locker room still, not just kind of go away and do his own thing. So I don't know. We'll see how it shapes up. I'm not upset that Big Ben is not going to be playing the Browns twice this year. That is for certain.
Right? I mean, he's putting a beating down on the Browns in the past, but yeah, I'm not going to write the Steelers off to be some crappy team that's going to get a record that gets them a top 5 pick just yet. I mean, they still have a lot of talent. No one knows about Mason Rudolph except the people within the Steelers organization. So we'll just see what plays out. But 0-2, not a good start. Obviously, losing Ben all year is extremely less than ideal. And then the timing of the trade after the injury is just kind of weird.
Yeah, it is.
And like we just discussed, it could be setting up for next year. It could be they do have faith in Mason Rudolph and they felt like they didn't need that first round pick, even if they were going to struggle with Rudolph. So
or yeah, maybe they think, we can still compete for the division, add a little bit to the defense and the secondary that could help Mason Rudolph on the other end, take a little bit of pressure off the offense. There's a lot of ways to kind of really think about it. I guess we'll just kind of have to see where the next couple of weeks pan out. Who do they play? Do you remember who they play this week? If they go 0-3, they are in rough shape, and in particular, especially if they go 0-4. But yeah, I mean, the one thing I do not want to skim over that you mentioned is Drew Brees. Teddy Bridgewater, I think he's highest paid backup quarterback in the league, or up there as one of them.
He probably should be.
Pretty, yeah, I think I heard that, but I know I'm sure he's up there. I still think the Saints are going to be a solid team, even with Bridgewater. But what do you think that does to the NFC as a whole? Because I think both of us had the Saints in the Super Bowl. preseason and even into the early season this year. What do you think that injury does to, the whole mix-up of the NFC? Because personally, the team that I've been mentioning, the Green Bay Packers, look pretty fucking good.
They did.
And the other team that I like, them Cowboys, look pretty fucking good.
They look pretty good as well. I agree with both of those teams. The Saints, similar to what we were saying about the Steelers, and probably to a higher degree, they have a lot of talented players on that roster, both sides of the football. I mean, they've got studs at multiple levels on the defense and
got fucked by the refs once again.
Yeah, that return. Hold on. When are officials in college football and NFL going to learn to swallow their fucking whistle on any play that is questionable, where it's a fumble, anything? Just let it play out.
Yeah, I think it might have been the Monday night game watching the Browns when they had, it might have been that game when they had like a ref or a ex-ref come in and kind of speak on that exact play. And he talked about how they're told, the refs are told, if it's questionable, don't fucking blow the whistle. Well, they're taught that.
Here's the solution.
They still fucking do.
They still do. So here's the solution. Make it all reviewable. Right now, one scenario is reviewable and the other isn't. If they let it play out, it's reviewable. If they blow the play dead, and for example, if a quarterback
I know in
fumbles
college,
and the arm is moving forward and they rule it an incomplete pass, that is not reviewable.
Well, in college, I know a fumble that gets blown dead, if it's a clear recovery, they can overturn it. But they can't let the other team return it, if that makes sense. Like, if a dude scoops and scores, they can't say, we fucked up, here's a touchdown. But I do think they can say, you get the ball right there because you clearly recovered it.
I think that might be the case. I can tell you...
But still, just don't blow the fucking whistle. And
just don't blow it.
What we're told is by this fucking old man ref in the booth with Booger and fucking what's his name, is they're taught not to, and told not to blow the whistle. Yet they still fucking
just don't do. I mean, I don't know. It's really confusing. It happened to Michigan against Army early in the game. Our safety recovered a fumble and housed it clear as day, and they blew it dead because his knee appeared to be down. Then you look at the replay. His knee's not fucking hitting the ground as he's picking the ball up. Picks it up, houses it. They don't get the touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, something we spoke on before is find the refs maybe. Hold the refs accountable.
Somehow, I mean. But anywho, not to get off on too much of a tangent there, but I do feel passionate about that. They need to fix that shit. But the Saints,
you changing your NFC pick?
I'm not going to change
from
much. After only 2 weeks. I mean, we still need to learn a little bit about a lot of teams, but the Saints do have Bridgewater. I think with their talent around them, they can maybe weather the storm. I mean, as long as, say Brees is out, they're saying around 6 weeks. In those 6 weeks, they're 1-1 now. Say they go 500. Say they only drop one game, say they are one game under 500 after that stretch, and then Drew Brees comes back. Two teams get the bye, but there's 4 other teams that make the playoff in the NFC. Even with Teddy Bridgewater playing, are there that many NFC teams that you would say are clear favorites to get in over the Saints? I think it's debatable.
Yeah, I mean, the Saints will probably get in, especially with that division. The Panthers don't look very good. The Falcons...
They're an interesting team.
I don't really have much faith in...
I don't want to write the Falcons. They were my kind of under-the-radar pick that people weren't talking about.
Matt Ryan is a bum, dude. I'm convinced. I'm convinced he's lost it. He's done.
A bum is a... I don't know about
Buccaneers, they'll win 6 games, 7 games. They're not going to be that great.
Well, they suck. The
Saints should still be able to win the division. Even if Bridgewater had to play the whole season, I'd still think they should win the division, especially with the Cam Newton news that we're seeing of his fucked up ankle or foot or whatever it is. He's looked like shit. He had that shoulder surgery over the offseason. They don't look very good at all.
No.
So, I think the Saints still probably won the division, like I said, even if Bridgewater played the whole season. So, like you said, after 6 weeks, Brees comes back, make the playoff push, make the playoffs. The same team that we said would go to the Super Bowl is still sitting right there with, just 6 less weeks of chemistry with Drew Brees.
The NFC to me is more wide open than the AFC. I mean,
Dude,
like
the Patriots.
The Patriots look unreal.
Might not lose.
And then, to go into some other topics there, with the Fitzpatrick trade, there have been other big name players to young players too, to kind of request trades here. Jalen Ramsey is one of them. And it makes so much sense for the Chiefs.
Yeah.
While they don't have to lock up Mahomes under a huge contract, once you have their O-line is pretty solidified. They have weapons around Mahomes. They don't need that first round pick. They don't need it anymore. Trade that shit now for Jalen Ramsey and add that piece to your secondary, shut down corner. The Chiefs and the Patriots are by far the two favorites in the AFC right now. I don't know that many other teams are going to be able to catch them. Still only 2 weeks. I want to see more from other teams, including the Browns.
Yeah, no doubt.
To learn more, but I mean,
the Browns have their offense kind of looked like shit. Baker has really, really struggled from what I've seen. I don't know what he just doesn't have his groove. He doesn't have his rhythm. I don't know if it's just with the play calling or not getting the run game.
He's holding on to the ball longer.
He is, definitely. I don't know if that's, like I said, a play calling design of trying to get things more developed deeper into a play or, less quick route kind of stuff. We did see that quick route slant that OBJ took 90 yards to the house.
Fuck you, Greg Williams.
Yes, he should have just kind of given a whole middle finger on this way across the sideline.
Now, I will say Williams did a decent job holding the fort as interim coach. But we housed a play. How fitting was it that we housed a touchdown like that on his patented punt return defense on second or third down?
Let's put the safety 40 yards off the ball, which we couldn't handle the fucking lunacy of it when we were Browns fans as him calling the plays in Cleveland. Now he's just transformed that whole system to the Jets, and good luck trying to stop an OBJ in open field from 25 yards away. So there's no shot. That safety had no chance against maybe the fastest wide receiver in the game, giving him that much of a cushion.
A very dynamic receiver. One of the most dynamic. I cannot emphasize the word dynamic anymore.
That's the thing, man. You get that dude with the ball in his hands, he's the best in the league, probably. So let's give the best receiver a cushion of a safety that's 40 yards off the ball, 30 yards off the ball. Good luck, bro.
We line up in trips to one side, one receiver to the other, and the running back was to the same side as the single receiver, I believe. And the funniest thing I saw on Twitter following that game was someone took a screenshot, of their television screen pre-snap. So you see the trips lined up to one side, and he puts a counter on each receiver, 1, 2, 3. And then the way Greg Williams had them aligned was you only count 2 DBs up toward the line on their receivers against trips, and their third count, they had 2 safeties. The second one was on the side of the field with the single receiver. The third count on that side to trips wasn't even in the picture.
Even in the picture.
He's not even on the TV screen.
And that's the thing.
He's like 40 yards downfield.
I don't know if his concept is, okay, we're not going to, almost like no doubles defense for baseball. Like, okay, don't let the ball go over your head. If anything, play it in front of you. Don't let that guy score from second. No doubles.
You can't do that when Odell is fucking lined up into the slot. He wasn't even out.
He caught the ball 7 yards or something off the line of scrimmage, and you got a guy trying to catch him who's 25 yards away. There's no shot.
It was straight up like running either video game, running seams with trips to one side,
That's Madden all
getting
day,
the snap, and just gunning it to your fastest dude in the slot.
I take OBJ and Madden, and I do want to like just a little flick to the left of a route, and it just looks like, well, I'm glad I did it, but there's no way that's realistic. And then you watch him in real life do exactly the same thing. Like, oh, okay.
You're like, oh,
maybe Madden does know what the fuck they're talking about. He did just run by that safety who was 20 yards away. He's too good, man. He's too good. He's a star on the team. I was impressed by OBJ coming out with all the talk. I mean, obviously you hear all the talk in, when he was in New York, because it was New York. I think a lot of it also because, like you said, one of the most dynamic receivers in the league. But to hear all the talk of the watch, and he's getting all these questions about all this other bullshit, and then he just comes out and balls the fuck out. That one-handed catch first drive of the game.
It was sauce.
89-yard tud. He got a fucking battle with the refs telling him his visor's too tinted, and he just continues to ball out. This dude, I'm very impressed. I mean, not that I haven't been in years past. He's been one of my favorite receivers. He's just a beast, but I fucking love that guy, man. He does it all. And, you hear it a lot about him, bashing teammates and all this negative talk about OBJ. I don't have anything negative to say about the dude, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of that was all overblown. He was playing in New York where the media is fiercest. He wasn't playing for a good Giants team. Era he was there, it wasn't like the Giants or the Giants that we saw growing up that won 2 soups.
And then you hear the guys who were like, before OBJ, they won 2 Super Bowls. And then OBJ comes, everything goes to shit.
Yeah, it's all his fault. It's all his fault.
Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Look at him. Their offensive line is atrocious.
Things change.
Their defense sucks ass. They have 2 good players on their entire offense. One is kind of hurt now with Sterling Shepard, if you want to count him as a good player. I would.
Yeah.
And then Saquon is just stud. I mean, Eli's out, another starting quarterback who's not in the game anymore. Not injury-wise, it's just his play. And I don't even know that it's really his play. I think it's just they suck ass. And they were like, why the fuck not put Danny Jones out there?
Yeah.
You draft him in the first round. He's your guy. Let's see what he's got. Yeah, exactly.
So at some point, you got to find out what you drafted.
Yeah, I watched some of the recap of that Giants game. Eli didn't look terrible this past week. He made some throws, a lot of drops, a lot of offensive line collapsing.
While Eli is still there, throw your rookie out there. It's not like you're throwing him in there week 1, But
yeah.
So, to wrap up the Browns, look, let's face it, they have not played, even though they got the win, and I'm very glad we needed the win, and a win is a win, and that's huge. And we won by 20 points. Yep. Defense, did what they needed to do, but they have not played sound football in these first 2 weeks. This offense just hasn't clicked. Right. I'm not going to read into it too much with only 2 weeks of football. I mean, in week 1, the game plan kind of all changed when you freaking rack up 200 yards of penalties. So we've got 2 huge tests next, and this offense had better find their rhythm. They had better click, whether it's between Freddie, Baker, and Monken, trying to figure things out. Who knows what it is? They need to get their groove here because we have injuries right now. And Njoku came out of that game. We don't have Hollywood. Yeah, but look, you have Nick Chubb at running back. You have Odell and Landry. He looks good. He looks like the Nick Chubb we expected when he does get the ball. But when you have Chubb, Odell, and Jarvis Landry and Baker, I'm sorry. That is plenty of weapons to get some shit rolling on offense. And that Jets team had some injuries. I would have liked to have seen them be a little more crisp on offense, but
yeah, their offensive line did play a lot better than week 1. It couldn't have played any worse than they did week 1. But they didn't play terrible this past week. I didn't really see any egregious mistakes or really off the wall shit that really was too noteworthy. Honestly, like I mentioned, Nick Chubb played pretty well. He's just steady Eddie beast. Had that nice touchdown run. Baker was the down point of that offense. There was open receivers that he missed on many occasions. Juice, a couple times, had nice big gains that Baker just missed them. And there was another play, I can't remember exactly who was the receiver, but Baker has not done really anything the first 2 weeks. He's made a couple nice throws, obviously. But overall, he needs to be the guy who steps it up because the rest of the offense, more or less, is getting their jobs done. They're getting open. They're making blocks. Chubb is running hard. Like you mentioned with Njoku going down with the concussion, that was unfortunate. Our tight end depth is very, very minimal. And then Higgins out left a lot of, rattly plays, which with him and Callaway being suspended for a couple more games, Baker needs to get his shit together because he's not played well at all.
He, right now, through 2 weeks. Now, some of these interceptions was hero ball in the fourth quarter, all in the fourth quarter, against the Titans. So, whatever. But the stats don't look good. 60% completion percentage. That isn't end of the world. 610 yards, 2 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. I mean, it's not like...
well, the one pick wasn't fourth quarter. This last game, I can't remember when that...
Sorry, against the Titans.
Yeah, all
three,
those, yeah,
all
three
in the
on the fourth quarter. As they had gotten behind, and he was just trying to make miracles happen or make throws that he shouldn't have made.
Yeah, I mean, and I think some of that was Freddie too. Like, fuck it. I mean, we got to air it out here. Let's see what we can do, and things just. Well,
that first one was still a 9-point game in that fourth quarter.
The first one, yes.
Yeah, it all kind of went downhill from there. Let's move on from that game. But
yeah, I mean, Baker's got to be better. The whole offense needs to start clicking because you're playing the Rams in
this
prime time
week
on Sunday.
Yeah, this upcoming week is going to be a major showing of who the Browns are. The Titans, everybody talked about, Titans should be a win. Titans are a good team. They've won 9 games 3 years straight. They're a solid team.
It should have been a win, but they are a solid team.
They'll probably win that division. Well, Houston's in that division. Maybe it'll be tight. It'll be tight.
They're not a bad team.
Yeah.
No,
they'll probably win 9
think
games
everyone
at least again.
acknowledges that.
The Jets suck. We saw that. The defense played dominant football this past week. Myles Garrett looked like a freak, minus those 2 horrible penalties that cost Trevor Siemian his season, if not his career. That was disgusting on TV.
That was gross. They showed it in slow-mo like 3 times.
I know. Like, geez. The first time I was like, oh, man, what happened to him? He, fuck up his knee, and then they showed it the second time. I was
different
like,
angle.
Man, his foot is gone. His ankle was ripped off and then he walked away. I was like, what the fuck?
I couldn't believe he got up. And
it was all.
away.
I guess it was all tears, no breaks, so that helps, I guess. But yeah, I mean, other than the stupid penalties of him, that 3rd and long was just absurd. That ended up there were only 3 points, I believe, in the entire game, is because Myles Garrett wanted to break Trevor Siemian's foot. But the defense looked good. Denzel Ward, I think, played pretty well, bounced back a little bit. They had that one big play, Robbie Anderson on Denzel down the right sideline on one-on-one coverage. But actually looked it up. Well, I didn't look up that specifically, but I was just looking at different stats, and that was the lowest completion percentage that was completed of the season so far, that throw. So on NFL Stats, I forget what website it is, but they rank a bunch of weird stuff. Like I think how I got to the website was I was looking at how fast OBJ ran on that touchdown. And he was like 2nd or 3rd fastest play in the league so far. And they have a stat of completion probability percentage. And that throw to Robbie Anderson that Denzel covered him on that right side that went for like 40 yards or 35 yards was the lowest probability percentage of any throw in the whole league so far. And that was really the only play that, it was like 10% chance of being completed, and it was completed. So, I mean, he didn't really he got beat on that comeback, but he played pretty good D on that play. And that was really the biggest play of the game from a secondary standpoint. I think he bounced back a little bit. Defense looked good, man. The
defense did what they should have versus a depleted offense in the NFL. I mean, They did what they needed to do. I think we both agree we just need to see more from that offensive side of the ball. That's where majority of the hype was, and understandably so when you trade and get a guy like Odell. We saw what Baker and Chubb can do last season. I mean, Baker isn't exactly on the high list of my concerns by any means, but he hasn't played well, and that's just a fact. It just is what it is. So week 3, first the Rams, in my opinion, I don't know if I, might get beat up for this by some other people's thoughts. I would be very fine with a loss to the Rams if it is a good-looking loss, game where we actually look like we can execute and be an explosive offense.
So you're going to watch that game Sunday night. I'm pretty sure I might be there. Hopefully that goes through and we end up landing those tickets, knock on wood. So you're going to tell me you're going to watch that game. The Browns are going to lose, let's say, 28-20. And you're going to be like, fuck it. That's all right.
I mean,
you're going to be happy about it, or
I'm
not
going to judge it just by a score per se. I need to see
if they play okay, if they play well,
with context.
they make
I'm not saying
plays.
okay. I'm saying they play very quality, high-level football.
So
Offense looks like in a groove, but the Rams, I mean, let's face it, the Rams are a really good team.
Let's say 28-20. So that's several field goal drives that, they move the ball, end up getting a field goal, getting some points, end up losing by a touchdown. Dude, fuck that. I will never be happy or satisfied with a loss.
If we win and Baker throws 4 picks and 1 touchdown for like 250 yards and his interceptions were terrible decisions, offense doesn't click at all, but somehow Goff makes one more bad decision and we squeak it out, you would take that as a win over a pretty loss where the offense actually clicks more so than what they have in the first 2 weeks.
Wait, you're asking me if I would take a win over a loss?
I'm just saying.
Is that is that an actual question that you're asking me? Because
how does either affect your outlook for the? I'm here for the long haul, not just 1 week.
So you would rather them lose?
I'm not saying I prefer one way or another,
win ugly.
but
Bro,
I mean,
there's only 16
a win
games
ugly
in the
where
season.
Baker has the same issues we've seen in the first 2 weeks.
Let's say they win 10-6 and Goff looks like shit and throws 5 picks and the Browns pick 6 and that's their only touchdown and Baker has 150 yards and 5 picks and we win the game. I'll take that over.
Look, I'll take the win. I'm going to be happy about a win, but the rest of the season outlook, yeah, I'd be very concerned about the offense.
Results.
Yeah,
is the only thing that matters.
I'm sure we'll win a bunch of games with Baker throwing multiple interceptions a game.
I didn't say that.
Well, that's kind of the point I'm getting at here.
The point you're getting at is a win versus a loss. I don't give a fuck how it happens. Win the game.
I think you're contradicting yourself there, bud.
Win the game. What are you talking about?
If we beat the Rams and Baker still has a very ugly game, that will be a persistent issue through the first 3 weeks. Yeah, I am going to have concerns for the rest of the year. I don't know what we're going to get with the
but
Browns.
I'd rather them win than lose and ball out. No, they balled out, but they lost. Or they won the game, but looked like shit.
I'm just saying, if they end up losing to a very good Rams team,
I get you.
But it was one more, better play made by the Rams. Goff has 2 more better throws.
I get you. It's not the end of the season if they lose, but I want to fucking win this game.
I want to win. Don't get me wrong. I want to win.
Talented enough to beat.
I'm not saying that would be my argument every single week. Oh, I would rather lose pretty every single week than no. I want wins, but in this context, with what we've seen the first 2 weeks, going up against the defending NFC champs who still have a stacked ass roster, one of the best young coaches in the game, I can handle a loss if the offense comes out and looks much more fluid than what they have in the first 2 weeks. And Baker isn't making those mistakes we've seen. He gets into a groove, puts up good numbers, looks good doing it. I can handle that loss and move forward versus an ugly win. Yeah, I'll fucking take the win. We're 2-1. But if Baker throws a couple interceptions and our offense doesn't click, I'm going to have concerns moving forward this season.
But I'd rather the win. I mean, you have 16 games in a season. 9 realistically could get you the division, if not the playoffs.
9 definitely could.
So we'd be walking with 2 wins. I don't give a fuck how you get them. Find ways to win. The good teams find ways to win no matter what, whether it's playing like shit and overcoming that adversity, injuries, overcoming that adversity. You find ways to win, and that's what I'm looking for. Finding ways to slow down that offense. We saw it be slowed down. I mean, the Patriots, I'm not going to say that we're anything close to the Patriots, but they forced them to 6 points or something ridiculous in the Super Bowl. They can be slowed down. Gurley hasn't looked like the Gurley we saw in the first half of last season anytime recently. Goff, I'm just not sold on Goff being a top 10 quarterback in the league. If they can get pressure and Baker can play halfway decent, they should be able to win the game. So
they should. I want to see it though. And again, I'm not advocating for a loss here over a win. I'm just making the point. I can handle a Browns loss if they look very good doing it. I would rather, in this instance, if they come out and look really good and a good Rams team, makes 1 or 2 more plays to win the game, I'm not going to be hell-bent out of shape going into the next week against the Ravens. But if the offense looks like shit again and Baker is still not looking comfortable, I don't know, man. I'm not feeling good moving into the succeeding weeks here.
Yeah, the only last thing I want to mention on that is the thing about the offense that hasn't looked great. What I've seen is not really the execute. The only thing that's really, I think, bogged down the offense for the most part has been Baker's play, and he's missed some throws, and he stalled a lot of drives last night, or 2 nights ago, I guess now at this point, that they were, had a little bit of groove. If he would have made this throw or made that throw where he overthrew Landry or threw this ball, out of bounds when he was on an out route, Baker making throws continues to drives, means they get more points, they keep fluid. That was the only thing that really didn't happen, and I'm not really, I have faith in Baker overall to be able to get the job done. Seeing what he did last year, even though he's struggled, the offense last week definitely improved drastically from week 1 and looked pretty decent other than Baker missing a couple throws. Yeah, a couple drives stalled out otherwise, but I'm not really concerned about Baker overall. I think he is good enough to get his shit right and adjust and improve. So that's why I'm not really concerned about the offense. But I know we want to get into some NCAA. Week 3, pretty boring week.
Very boring week. I mean, there's not much to
the only really games
about.
That stood out are MSU getting fucked.
That was awesome. Not gonna lie, I enjoyed that thoroughly.
They're not. I mean, we were just.
You know what's funny? Here's where a case where you can rip on the head coach.
What is going on with MSU?
So it's like they're across the 50. They're in field goal range. They don't have a timeout, and they're sitting on the sideline. There's like 14 seconds left or so. They're sitting on the sideline, fucking around with what they're going to do. Kick the field goal or go for it or whatever the hell they're going to try. They decide to kick the field goal late, rush their special teams unit out onto the field. They got that kickoff with like 1 second left, and he hit it down the middle. But because they rushed their unit out in the field because they couldn't make a decision, they ended up getting 12 men on the field, and it got obviously, the field goal got nullified, and they got backed up 5 yards. And kind of the bright side of rushing the team out in the field was the kicker didn't have time to think about it. It was like, shit, let's go. I gotta go kick this thing. Well, now
you iced him.
You iced him,
which I talked shit about icing kickers last week.
Well, I mean, imagine being a kicker. It's a total head game. So now you just make the kick. Your emotions are high. Like oh, fuck yeah, you just tied the game for your team. Then all of a sudden the refs announce that they're reviewing the play. You're like,
yeah,
I split it. Yeah. I split. What are they reviewing? I just split the kick, and then you find out, we had 12 guys in the field.
At least with like an icing situation, you hear the whistle and then you kick it. So like in the back of your mind, you're probably like, all right,
you can laugh it off, like, oh, these
this doesn't
dickhead coaches.
You hear the whistle, you're like, okay, as you're getting ready to kick, okay, this doesn't really count. Boom, but he kicks it, thinks he just made the kick of the game, and then it's like, it's like,
nope,
you got to do it again.
You got to do it again, bro.
I mean. That's another thing. Don't be down 3 in the last seconds against Arizona State. Yeah. I mean, that has been a solid and popular pick to win the Pac-12, Arizona State. And, I mean, at this point, after the way they've looked, beating Michigan State and all that, starting 3-0, they still got some conference games that are obviously going to be the deciding factors of what goes on in that conference. But they look solid. But
the drive before that, I mean, they let Arizona State's quarterback scramble for first downs on 3rd and long situations. I mean,
you just shouldn't be in a 3-point game against Arizona
If you're a good team, you shouldn't be at home. I mean, they shouldn't have been there. So that was hilarious. Obviously, I'm biased. Fuck Michigan State. OSU, unfortunately, looks lethal. Justin Fields is a machine.
That defense is...
The defense is crazy. I mean, Todd, I think this is a little high for Okuda, but Todd McShay came out with his top 5, and Okuda and your D end, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Chase Young.
Well, Chase Young's probably going to go number 2 overall.
Bro, he's top 3. Okuda is definitely first half of the first round, maybe top 10.
Yeah, I think
in that range.
I kind of said top 10. Top 10, I think, when we did our I mean, that's definitely his talent.
I watched. I mentioned in like
the thing about. Oh, go ahead.
I mentioned in like the first episode, I follow recruiting. So I watched Okuda's highlights and obviously had learned that Ohio State was very high on the list to get him. And my cousin also follows recruiting. He's a big Michigan fan. And I told him, hey, if you're looking up players and their highlights, do not look up Jeffrey Okuda's highlights because you will puke that he's going to Ohio State. And sure enough, here he is, balling out, projected top 5 by one ESPN insider.
Dude, the thing about Okuda, who, I mean, obviously he's one of the better, coverage guys in the nation, but he can lay the stick, bro.
Yeah.
He comes up and makes plays at the line of scrimmage, which was one thing that I had concerns about with Denzel Ward when he was drafted by the Browns. I was like, all right, cool. I mean, I know he can cover, but is he going to be able to be a good enough tackler? Is he going to be able to, play any run defense whatsoever? He's kind of proven that he's been pretty.
He balled out immediately.
Made a Pro Bowl, obviously, but so my concerns were really, gone real quick. But Okuda not only can cover as good as anybody in the whole nation, but he can tackle and he lays the stick, bro.
Well, Sites had him projected at safety because of that reason.
Really?
And I mean, he's fluid in his hips and he's that athletic to where he can line up man to man and cover receivers downfield.
That's what McShay kind of sees is some of that versatility that
for sure
allows him to kind of play all over the field wherever the defense might want to play him, which just makes him more enticing for a top 5 pick.
That's kind of I don't think Okuda is quite to Minkah Fitzpatrick's level in college, but Fitzpatrick was the same way, projected safety out of high school, played corner for Alabama and was able to move around in their defense as well, and that's where his versatility came from in the NFL. But yeah, I mean, Ohio State, I still want to see what Fields looks like when bullets are flying versus a team that has, more of an athletic defensive front to where pressure is actually getting to him meaningfully. I mean,
Cincinnati was supposed to have a pretty solid defense, and they got wrecked.
They just don't have the athletes,
right,
though.
That's
like,
the thing.
Like I'm not saying no one else in the Big Ten has the roster athletic wise that Ohio State has, but at the same time, teams like Penn State, Michigan, they recruit 4-star athletes to that 5-star range, especially on the D line. Michigan State's front 7 is, despite that loss, is still really solid. I want to see those situations where Fields is under pressure from quality fronts on the defense. But I will say he has looked really good at escaping pressure in that pocket, whether it's throwing downfield or making the decision to run. I mean,
and I've seen solid progression on that front, as you mentioned, through each week. Early on, we talked about it numerous times about that first week. It was really kind of a get ahead early, make plays, and then coast. Cincinnati, he made another step, I thought, where he, made some throws in the pocket. He, drove the ball a little bit more, especially last week as well. They had a lot of sustained drives, too, where, he's making throws all over the field, moving around in the pocket. He's not, using his legs and his athleticism to make plays that otherwise could be made from inside the pocket. This dude, his improvement week by week, to me, shows that I think he's going to be so well-rounded as we get into Big Ten play that as long as he continues to improve, as long as the offense continues to evolve and develop throughout the season along with him, they're going to be a tough team to beat, man.
They will be.
They're going to be a tough damn team to beat. And their schedule was pretty set up to run it out, especially until that Michigan game, which is pretty much their only concern for me at this point, except for Wisconsin, but they do have Wisconsin at home. They got Penn State at home as well right before that Michigan game, which makes it a little bit more enticing for that Michigan game. If they can get the job done against Penn State, say they are still undefeated, they got Penn State leading into on the road against Michigan. Obviously, you still got some games to take care of and handle business. Michigan State, you got that Wisconsin, like I said, Northwestern on the road, but I don't really see anybody in the Big Ten or otherwise beating Ohio State before that playoff.
No, I don't either. They were my pick to win the Big Ten. Nothing I've seen through the first 3 weeks is going to change that. So, again, just like the NFL, there's still a lot to learn about certain teams in college, but unlike the NFL, college, it's so much easier to predetermine who the top teams that are out there to destroy are going to be. And right now that's Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. LSU appears to be in that category where they're set up with these stud athletes, stud offensive and defensive lines that are just going to come out and smack these early teams.
A quarterback that apparently a certain national media didn't realize that played for Ohio State for 3 years as he was interviewing Urban Meyer, which is hilarious.
Oh, you heard that today? That's crazy. But yeah, so, we always knew those teams were going to be lethal
Oklahoma,
this year. Oklahoma is in that group too. So moving on from there, Georgia plays Notre Dame this week, and Notre Dame is they're one of those teams that I wouldn't put in the category of teams we just listed just yet, but they're right outside. They're right outside, and if they beat Georgia, they're in. I personally don't see it. Georgia is at home. Favored. Shot. They opened at 13.5.
No shot.
They opened at 13.5.
13.5? I was going to say I put some money, but 13.5 is a big
dude.
That's a big pool.
I'm calling Georgia covers. Notre Dame has allowed, I believe the stat was 19 runs of 10 or more yards.
Damn.
They've only played 2 games. The rest of the teams in that category have played 3. It was something along those lines.
Gotcha.
Georgia's offensive line is one of the best in the country, and they shit out talent at running back. Yeah. They're going to feast. I think Georgia is going to smack Notre Dame at home and cover that 13.5 line that opened. I think it bumped up a half point to 14 last time I looked at CBS Sports.
Speaking of, do you think Georgia? I mean, I'm trying to think of who's out there. RBU. We talked about DBU in the pre-show a couple weeks back. RBU, man, do they have the most running backs in the NFL right now? It's got to be close.
Yeah, I don't know about quantity, but weighing quantity and quality.
I mean, Wisconsin's got to be up there, but
Wisconsin's definitely up there, which is crazy by them.
If Mel Gordon was actually playing, but you got Sonny Michel, Nick Chubb, Todd Gurley.
When you weigh what they're doing in the NFL and what they did in college, I mean, it's hard to dispute that Georgia. Now, if you only weigh college, you could open that argument up to like Alabama. Their depth at running back has been crazy. Ohio State has been pretty solid at running back as well in the college ranks. They have Zeke, obviously, who's a freak in both levels.
Dude,
but
Najee Harris, you see that run that dude had
that
last
run
week?
is awesome. Run is awesome.
Multiple
stiff arms, and then the hurdle.
Hurdle a guy. Oh, sick.
It is sweet.
But yeah, I mean, you talk about Georgia, Notre Dame. Really, the only other intriguing game for the most part is Ohio State, Miami. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Hey,
right.
Athens OU alum. I'm looking forward to seeing Miami get their fucking asses slapped. But realistically, I mean, Auburn, Texas A&M is really the only other game besides game. With your boys over there at Michigan, that is any level of intriguing. Real quick before we jump into the Michigan game, if you have any thoughts on that, Auburn, Texas A&M, I'll be interested to see. I think Texas A&M has a solid team. Auburn obviously is Auburn. I wonder what the spread is, but hey, I might take Texas A&M on that game.
A&M is favored by 3.5.
Are they? Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm gonna take Texas A&M. I think they do cover that actually, but fuck the SEC. I know you probably have a quick thought on what you want to see or what you expect to see this weekend. Noon o'clock.
Yep, it's at noon.
Over in Madison.
Michigan on the road, Wisconsin favored by 3.5. I understand Wisconsin being favored. I mean, Michigan has not looked solid in their first 2 weeks. It's extremely disappointing that the offense hasn't clicked yet. Similar to my thoughts about the Browns, where I thought with the talent returning on that side of the ball, they'd look a little more polished to start the year.
Man, I just hear sadness in your voice.
It is sad.
Usually you're very more animated. Now you're talking about Michigan, your squad, and you're just very reserved and talking a little bit low. Like, well, I guess I got to talk about Michigan a little bit. Them fuckers over there. Shea Patterson can't hold on a goddamn ball. Fucking Harbaugh got to dick up his ass all day long. It's going to be fired. What the fuck?
Basically where I'm at is I'm sick. I'm kind of sick of figuring out what this team is. And it's still been early. But, I figured certainly by the 5th year under Jim, we'd be opening up like toward the category of those teams I listed of just coming out and fucking destroying teams early. And so far we haven't. Yeah, and now we come out after a bye. It is time to show up on the road. Bro.
Statement game.
This really defines, it's a season defining moment. I know it's still early and a lot of things can happen afterward, but at the same time, kind of like I touched on in the past podcast, if these issues we've been seeing with Michigan continue to happen, especially after a bye week, I'm going to have major concerns about Michigan's offense moving forward, and that's going to put a huge damper on the outlook of Harbaugh's year 5. So really what I want to see is come out against Wisconsin. They're going to, Jonathan Taylor is probably the best running back in the country. They always produce a quality offensive line unit. I want to see us force their hand, force them to throw by scoring early and letting our talented edge rushers and secondary control the game and force Wisconsin to throw.
Yeah,
So
I'm looking forward to that game. Like I mentioned last week about what was going on with Ohio State and how much attention do I need to pay to Ohio State. They play fucking Miami, like I mentioned, so hey, probably going to be paying more attention to your game than my own, even though I think the Buckeyes is a 3 o'clock game or something like that. So and we'll see most of it. I might just end up watching the end of the Michigan game as well because the Miami game is going to be sloppy.
Yeah, it's gonna be
but
ugly.
I know we're going pretty long on this podcast, and we do have a pretty big topic that we really want to get into and spend some time on. So segueing from that NCAA talk of week 3 and week 4 into what we saw last week with the comments made by Tim Tebow and the whole conversation of paying collegiate athletes. And, how I see it is there's really 2 ways to kind of look at the whole situation. One is, should collegiate athletes get paid? And that's a question for an argument in its own right. And then the other part of that question is, what impact and effect does that have on college football as a whole? So before we really jump into all of that whole conversation, I know we want to talk about what Tebow had said because it kind of sets the tone for should collegiate athletes get paid, and that first part of the question that I mentioned. So let's take a quick second and listen to Tebow and his little rant. I think it was over on ESPN. Let's hear what he had to say.
I feel like I have a little credibility and knowledge about this because when I was at the University of Florida, I think my jersey was one of the top selling jerseys around the world. It was like Kobe, LeBron, and then I was right behind them, and I didn't make a dollar from it. But nor did I want to, because I knew going into college what it was all about. I knew going to Florida, my dream school, where I wanted to go, the passion for it, and if I could support my team, support my college, support my university, that's what it's all about. But now we're changing it from us, from my university, from being an alumni where I care, which makes college football and college sports special, to then, okay, it's not about us, it's not about we, it's just about me. And yes, I know we live in a selfish culture where it's all about us, but we're just adding and piling it onto that, where it changes what's special about college football. We turn it into the NFL, where who has the most money, that's where you go. That's why people are more passionate about college sports than they are about NFL. That's why the stadiums are bigger in college than they are in the NFL, because it's about your team. It's about your university. It's about where my family wanted to go. It's about where my grandfather had a dream of seeing Florida win an SEC championship. And you're taking that away so that young kids can earn $1. And that's just not where I feel like college football needs to go.
That's fair,
There's that
man.
opportunity in the NFL,
That's
but not
fair.
in college football.
So yeah, that's what Tebow had to say, and I guess I'll let the lead on to you, Jeff. What is your reaction and thoughts on that part of the question of, should collegiate athletes be paid? What says you?
I think the game has evolved and changed, and the entertainment value has only increased exponentially. College football is more of an entertainment product now with these TV deals have become monstrous. I even think, some of the weight of the academic side of a scholarship has been a little bit decreased just because of how much money there is in the pot now that collegiate athletics, mainly men's basketball and football, can generate. So I think it's a fair discussion to throw out there that, maybe they do deserve some additional compensation based off of the money that's generated. As far as Tim Tebow's comments go, it's like, look, dude, I get it. You view the collegiate game as like sacred and you want to preserve it, but
dude, go ahead. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
But one, everyone is different. Come from different backgrounds. Maybe Tim Tebow didn't need the money, even if it was offered it.
Tim Tebow has, I guarantee, never in his life been in a situation where he had to need for anything ever.
Well, it's even like this. Go to Tim Tebow now with, he's been employed by ESPN. His face has been put on TV by the NFL and say, hey, Tim, the endorsements you've gotten have been because you played for the Broncos and you're employed by ESPN. Guess what? We're going to take 100% of your endorsement deals because the Denver Broncos elevated your face and name. ESPN elevated your face and name, and see what his reaction would be to that.
There's multiple components of this whole Tebow thing. First of all, like I kind of just mentioned, he's never had to need. There's guys in this NCAA atmosphere. It's basically basketball and football, like you mentioned, is really the only sports that this really comes into play in.
They generate money.
Correct.
Let's face it. Money is the topic, and they generate it.
We're talking about certain athletes, and, where I came from and where I grew up in Warren, there was individuals who laid into this category that I'm going to lay out. Like there's people who don't have anything. They grew up with nothing. Their families have nothing. And they work their asses off to become some of the best premier athletes in the country. And now they have the opportunity to use their talent to make a profit for an organization, which is Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Wisconsin. You know what I'm saying? So Tebow, he has that same talent here he did when he was in college, which the funny thing also, you talk about his likeness of the Broncos. He makes his money right now because of the athlete he was in college.
Yeah,
let's face it. He really was nothing in NFL. There's guys who have better careers than Tebow ever had in
It's a good point.
Pro football and don't make nearly as much off of their likeness as Tebow does because of who he is, mainly because of the collegiate athlete that he was. Tebow has never had to need anything. And I could be wrong, but generalizing from the things that I've seen of Tebow and his family and all the things like that on, in the public eye, I can assure you the situations of a lot of the guys who are probably taking some of these side deals that are, at some of these big schools and, getting paid on the side or getting incentives that aren't really seen in the public eye because they're against the rules of the NCAA. Tebow never had to worry about any of that. I'm sure, he probably got some, who knows, he might have got, his family might have got some incentives too. That's neither here nor there, but he never had to need any of it.
And regardless of that, he's entitled to his opinion, but guess what? That's one opinion, like you're alluding to. That doesn't apply to every single situation across the board.
What he had to say was college football, college sports, I think he more, if we want to more generalize it, because basketball kind of falls into this, is the way it is because of the passion teams or teams, players, individuals, fans have for their schools and the teams that they root for. And he wants to say that that'll be gone if players get paid, and they can't get paid because the sanctity of college football will be, lessened because they're getting paid. He doesn't understand that guys have laid their lives out there of having nothing, work their asses off, like I said, to get to a position where they can produce profit for another individual, but they're now not allowed to profit for themselves. They have had nothing. They grew up with nothing. They had, whether it's single parent families or you hear the stories about guys who lived in trailer homes and now are multimillionaires in the NFL. There's guys who are in that same situation who blow out their knees in college football and never get a dime because they just get unlucky. So a guy like Tebow coming out and saying, oh, they shouldn't get paid because it would disrupt what college football is all about or what college basketball is all about. You know what? Tebow can kiss my ass because it's more than football and basketball. It is a life. These guys their lives and their livelihood and their families' lives are on the line based on their athletic ability. And they have to put 3 years worth of their physical talent in their peak and their prime on the line before they're allowed to go to the NFL or the NBA. And the NBA is a little bit different because you only get 1 year, but to professional sports and get that opportunity. Unlike even in baseball, you have the opportunity. Let's say you want to go, you have the choice right now. You can go to the NCAA and join a D1 school, and in that circumstance, you have to stay 3 years, or you can go straight pro, straight out of high school. You can't do that in the NFL. Can't do that in the NBA, and in the NFL is even worse because you have to have 3 years out of high school, which is complete bullshit. There's no way you can convince me that an individual should not be able to be paid for his employment, if you want to call it that. Which another aspect of it is pull up the stat of highest public employees per state, and I guarantee more than 50% of them are basketball or football coaches.
Yeah, and I will say with that, with collegiate sports, and when you relate it to marginal revenue, it's different than professional sports. The faces of professional franchises are your stud players. They are the face, okay? So like with the Saints, Drew Brees.
Yeah. And that's another aspect. Drew Brees has been the face of the Saints for 12 years, 15 years. A guy in college is the face of the franchise.
It rotates more. 3 years. Right. So that's where I was going with that is when you look at the marginal revenue from a money standpoint in college, the marginal revenue is more so geared toward the head coach. Okay. When you have a high level head coach at one of the traditional programs, such as Ohio State, guy like Urban Meyer, okay, he elevates that program to totally new levels. Like Ohio State, they have history established. They're always going to sell themselves. But when Urban Meyer is there, okay, they're getting in the players. They're filling the stands, and you can hike up the ticket prices. Like that's where the marginal revenue is versus the Saints. Who gives a fuck about the coach? Drew Brees, that's why Michael Thomas, Drew Brees, their contracts are huge. They're putting fans in the stands. They're selling jerseys.
But it still doesn't make a difference to me because, the number one recruiting tool that Urban Meyer had and now Ryan Day has is, like I even mentioned the other day, you pull up a newspaper where you have a face of Mike Thomas and Zeke Elliott sitting there. Oh, hey, come to Ohio State. You can become the highest paid running back in NFL history.
Right, just pull up the NFL contracts.
They're not coming to Ohio State because they want to win national championships. That's part of it, but more part of it, it's extra the special NFL, guys are this organization, Alabama, Nick Saban, is going to set me up for a lucrative NFL career better than, Notre Dame, which Notre Dame is even up there as well.
They're up there.
Might not be the best comparison. Iowa, Indiana,
right?
Fucking Ohio University. You know what I'm saying? So they're not really coming to Urban Meyer or Nick Saban because they're the greatest coach and they want to win 4 natties and they want to fucking, put up all these stats. They want to come to these organizations and these colleges because it sets them up for success to become rich millionaires in the NFL.
Right. So that's the whole NCAA's argument. Just some background. California and now I learned New York, they're passing this bill that will allow collegiate players.
Well, passing. It's up for where are we at with this? I haven't looked at it in a couple of days. Are they passing it or?
I think California is passed. I think New York is proposed. is where that's at. But that kind of sparked the Tebow comments.
Right.
And the whole likeness thing and benefiting from the name, the NCAA standpoint, from a point of view, is basically related to what Ryan just alluded to, is that these players are going to these big name universities, and it's the university and it's the NCAA that is putting their name, on a larger platform. And, my thing with that is I give an example with Ohio State and Braxton Miller. Okay, well, Braxton Miller is at Ohio State. He starts a T-shirt company, all right, and promotes it on social media. I don't know how successful it was or unsuccessful, but I do know that the NCAA shut him down because he is a collegiate athlete, and they claimed that his business was profiting off of his likeness established by him being at Ohio State, and Ohio State, catapulting his name to popularity. So that's why, he was making profits. But my rebuttal to that is a guy like Braxton Miller is, one, very talented. He's a very talented athlete in his own right, okay? And two, he found a skill that he is talented at, which happens to be football. And think about how many hours each year he spent on improving his craft and dedicating throughout junior high, throughout high school, to get that scholarship to Ohio State. And then at Ohio State, think about a collegiate player's schedule, especially for a program like Ohio State football. He wakes up, he's got to worry about class, attending classes. He's got to worry about homework assignments. He's got to worry about lifting sessions. He's got to worry about actual practice and prepping for the game. He is putting in his own work to elevate his name. Like, he could have gone to many areas where his name gets elevated, and any other business student would have been, applauded for starting that business and making money. So the whole likeness thing, that's a bullshit rule.
It's complete horseshit
by the NCAA.
And that's what you said. I think, going back to what you mentioned a second ago, you were saying, Braxton, the argument was Braxton Miller was profiting because he had the platform of Ohio State to elevate his brand and his likeness to be successful. Fuck that, dude. Ohio State is good as a brand because the athletes fucking make it so. So
they're a part of it. They're absolutely a part of it. They're what makes it go.
What I'm saying is Ohio State is a brand because of the athletes.
Sure.
The athletes aren't a brand because they fucking put on, silver bullet helmets with fucking Buckeyes on the back and wear scarlet jerseys. No, it's the other way around. A long storied history of beast athletes want to go there because it feeds off one. One goes to the league and then it just all builds. You know what I'm saying? So the likeness thing, I can't even put it into words how bullshit it is that a guy can't profit or become lucratively successful because of what he is, who he is, what that person is able to do from a physical or athletic standpoint. If I'm the best trumpeter in the world and I have a academic scholarship at Michigan, and I'm just the best trumpet guy ever, and I'm going to sell out shows at fucking Carnegie Hall and playing trumpet concerts. I can go sell my shit online. I can sell out concerts. I can fucking sell out Madison Square Garden all day long. Nothing matters. That's fine. But now that you're in the NCAA, we don't want to let the athletes profit. We don't want to let the collegiate experience will be denigrated because these athletes are getting paid. Fucking get the fuck out of here. It's absurd, which leads into the next point. What happens in collegiate sports if these issues are allowed to go forward? Like if they go past and if they become reality and it allows collegiate athletes to get paid, what happens to the whole organization of the NCAA, the whole landscape of collegiate sports? So that is the next part of the question. So let's get into that a little bit.
It kind of depends on the pace that follows these states that are starting it, like California and New York. Right now, the NCAA could take a hard line and say fuck you to New York and California, your schools are ineligible from postseason events in football. They could very easily take that hard line. However, if more states follow suit here and this kind of snowballs on the NCAA, it'll force their hand to act.
Exactly.
I personally hope they act fast anyway and nip this in the butt, because this has been a topic for the past several years now with these TV deals. I mean, you get the Big Ten. Each conference has their own network. I mean, there's like so many pots of revenue out there, conference-wise, with these TV deals and the NCAA alone setting up these major bowl games. I hope they act fast, and the likeness thing to me is the easiest compromise, if you want to call it a compromise on both sides, because I think the argument that should they be paid, maybe not outright handed a paycheck, but available for compensation, yes, they should be. And the whole likeness thing, just allow them to benefit off their likeness.
If California and New York pass these bills, what happens?
If the NCAA takes a hard line and says, okay, California schools, cool. If you're gonna implement this bill, then you are banned from postseason play. All right, that's going to hurt recruiting. So let me ask you this. What's their motivation for that if the NCAA bans them from postseason and they can't win any sort of trophies?
They aren't going to Alabama to win natties. Yes, a part of that is, sure. But a bigger part of it is making lots of money for a lot of these guys. And a lot of the guys who are really fucking good are going to go get paid.
If players are going to get any sort of compensation, it has to be regulated. It can't just be like, you can't offer advantages to the situation you just described. USC can offer, they can spin it however they want. Boosters can offer, put this guy on a billboard for $200,000 where another school couldn't do it. I think in that respect, you have to rope the NFL in, and you have to rope in all these conferences and the individual schools. They're all profiting individually, and create this pot of profit and distribute it as a profit sharing program to where all players get compensated. Or you can take it a step further and say, fuck it. You want to come to this school? You can take the scholarship option on top of some sort of profit sharing program. I think is still owed to them. Or you can straight up sign a contract. Here's a contract for $100,000 per year. You've got that option where you're not obligated to schooling, or you can take the scholarship option. So the player is still taking their gamble on themselves if they take that contract. They don't have that full ride scholarship to fall back on in life if they don't make a professional sport. And they can do whatever they want. If they're sweet, they can go get whatever endorsement they want while they're still playing for collegiate school. Because at the end of the day, it is a farm system to the NFL. And where we're at now with college football, for example, it's a huge money generator. It's not like it was back in the 60s. There's a pot of money being made out there, and the athletes have their hands in generating it. So there needs to be solutions discussed out there by the NCAA on how to make it fair and how to get some compensation to these players. I think it's definitely justified with the landscape of collegiate sports now, particularly basketball and football. The money's out there.
What is hopeful for me is that these bills that are going through right now in California and New York kind of kick some people in the ass and get the motions going forward in the right direction to make everything fair for everybody. So hopefully that comes in through to, all into fruition and, makes its way in getting people rightfully paid for what they deserve. I think that wraps it up for episode 3. A very long episode 3. I'm sure we're going to be able to trim it down a little bit. Jeff, wrap us up. What do you say looking up for episode 4? Bring us home.
Episode 4, we'll recap the events happening this weekend. I'm sure we'll have some interesting discussions, especially if Michigan falls on their face. I'll be in full ranting mode, and then we got the Browns to look forward to for our home teams. But other than that, looking forward to continuing Calling the Field Stands podcast here and getting into some more heated debates here. Should be fun.
Yes, sir. All right, brother. Peace.